Hey guys, welcome back to Dirt Obsession. Kind of a special test for you today. We just picked this up from MLS Power Sports in Georgetown, Kentucky about 2 hours ago. So we're excited to get out, give you a little bit of a test and first impressions. So we did ultimately pick this King Quad 750 up to do a shootout comparison head-to-head with the Grizzly 700 that Flying Brian picked up just a few months ago. You can see our test review video of that a couple videos back on the channel, but today is going to solely be about the King Quad 750 full test and our thoughts and opinion on the King Quad. And then make sure you subscribe to the channel because the head-to-head shootout with the Grizzly 700 is going to be coming up very soon. Suzuki released the current version of the King Quad 750 at a press event in 2019, showcasing what amounted to be meaningful improvements over previous generations, but not the all-new twin powerhouse that a lot of enthusiasts and the media were expecting. The result was a collective meh from the media, with the general consensus being that the improvements certainly made the King Quad better overall, but it wasn't getting another cylinder, so it wouldn't be competing with the 850cc machines from Polaris and Can-Am. Generating the excitement for a new machine, then delivering upgrades and a facelift to a product that was already being offered, didn't garner the kind of attention that Suzuki was hoping for, and as a result, I think Suzuki delivered a machine that's often overlooked and underrated. In 2023, the King Quad 750 returns in the base model without EPS for $9,599, upgrade to the power steering for $10,649, or pick the SE in true timber camo or the SE Plus in metallic gray for $11,249. There's a lot to like about the King Quad, and while getting to know this machine, there was a few things that stood out. The first thing you'll notice is that Suzuki's fit and finish is excellent. While definitely not the most striking machine on the market, the Suzuki is still pleasing to the eye in a no-frills, down-to-business kind of way. A lot of touches were well thought out, like the footwells and foot pegs, and the bodywork and T-shaped seat actually lend themselves to quite a bit of body English by the rider. Everything is tight and does what it's supposed to, which surprisingly isn't all that common on ATVs on the market today. Racks are a little bit flimsier. The handling is really good. Power steering was upgraded in the 2019 makeover, and I like Suzuki's power steering. The assistance doesn't feel as strong at the beginning of the handlebar throw, but the more you steer, the lighter it gets, and I guess that's contributing to a more stable feeling at speed, especially when compared to some of the twitchier power steering that we've experienced on other machines. Power delivery is flawless. It's smooth with great throttle response. The more we rode, the more impressed we were with Suzuki's Quadmatic transmission. I'd even go so far as to say it may be the best on the market. One thing that I forgot to mention, that I should have mentioned, that is exceptional on the Suzuki is this gated shifter, and the shifting is absolutely butter smooth. I am really impressed, especially like we're used to the big Can-Ams and Polaris, and you gotta freaking fight with the shift lever constantly on those. It's awful, it's horrible, it's horrible. The King Quad, just butter smooth, never a hiccup. That is really good. Suzuki's Quadmatic transmission is outstanding as far as feel and punch off the bottom end, connectivity with the CVT, but especially with that gated shifter.
Feels like butter, like you said.
Yeah. Buyers in this market typically put a lot of stock in reliability, and the King Quad is known for reliability. With the increased strength of the chassis and reinforced gusseting that Suzuki added in 2019, I feel confident in saying the King Quad is probably one of the most reliable ATVs on the market. Contributing to the King Quad's reliability is the ease of maintenance. You can check the engine oil without having to remove any panels, and the differential fill caps, oil filter, fuel filter, and battery are all easily accessible. This just makes it easier to maintain your machine and keep it in good operating health over time. A few more things that stood out that we liked about the King Quad before we start getting into the cons of the machine. First is the display screen. It's simple and effective, and a natural visor created by the shape of the pod actually helps you read the screen. Its 4x4 system is the traditional button engage and flip lever to engage the diff lock. Call me old school, but it's my favorite four-wheel drive system, and it's getting harder to find on ATVs today. Engine braking seems dialed in pretty well. It doesn't come on too strong in high gear, but it holds the machine back quite a bit in low gear, which is perfect. As far as utility goes, steel racks front and rear with removable plastic covers give the racks a finished look, and a 2-inch hitch receiver is standard. Towing capacity is 1,322 pounds, which seems to be about the industry standard. So now that we've gone over what we like about the King Quad, it's time to get into what we don't like. The King Quad suspension isn't great. The travel numbers are 6.7 inches up front and 7.7 inches in the back, so that's shorter than a lot of the competition, and the ride isn't very plush. But the suspension combined with the rear sway bar does contribute to a more planted feel on the trails.
Alright, so right away, I would say the suspension feels a little bit stiffer than what I'm typically used to with most 4x4 ATVs. But there's not as much like dive and body roll as I thought there would be. I really think that's related to the spring rate. This is on the softest setting right away, and for the softest setting I wouldn't say it feels quite as plush as, say, like a Sportsman, but that's not a bad thing because I'm typically dialing that suspension up to prevent too much dive and body roll and bottoming out on the suspension. Hit a couple of like really small little drums, and it comes down really plush and smooth. It's just a little bit stiffer than I was anticipating, I would suppose.
I'm not in love with the handlebar bend either. Well, it's certainly not a deal breaker, and it is comfortable in a seated position during casual riding. It feels awkward when standing, and the sweep comes too far back and down to be comfortable when trying to get more spirited. All right, we said we weren't going to compare them too much, but I mean, we just got to show you. These downward sloped handlebars, Flying Brian is like, it's like 70s chopper style, you know, compared to like more traditional handlebars. This is nitpicking. We know we're going to have to nitpick these when we do the shootout and really get the difference, because it's by no means a deal breaker. Just trying to point out what the whole experience. The last thing I'd call a con on the King Quad is the storage. A combined 10.8 liter storage capacity from 3 compartments sounds better on paper than it actually is. And at first glance I was like, oh wow, that's a lot of storage, that's going to be good. These storage compartments are one step above useless. Like, this is just a GoPro bag in here. Like, okay, that's it. This thing is full to capacity with that sucker in there. That's all you got. This one next to it is maybe a little bit deeper, but it's still not a whole lot. So to me, like, you know, you can get a couple of water bottles in there, but I just dropped my sweatshirt because it's a little warm out. Can't fit my sweatshirt in any of the storage containers. That's kind of one thing I was hoping for.
All right, here's the section I was wanting to film.
Okay, so in regards to the suspension, because I mentioned it a few times, less travel than what you're going to get from some of the comparable machines on the market. 6.7 inches up front, 7.7 inches in the back. What that translates to on the trail is a very sporty and responsive ride. It feels really good when you're riding spirited through the trails. Feels like it's very planted and you can push it. But when you're getting trail chop, the machine's a little bit more rigid over that chop. You can feel that the suspension is stiffer. When you're doing things like this rocky section behind me, we're seeing less like reach with the A-arms. So there's not as much travel. The A-arms aren't reaching as much. So it makes it feel like it's a little bit rockier when you go through a section like this, I think, if that makes sense. On other machines that have a little bit more suspension travel, you're getting more like fluctuation from the A-arms and more movement, more travel in the suspension. So it makes it feel a little bit more planted and smoother going through this. You get more feedback. Less of that feedback is being absorbed by the suspension travel, but it makes for a little bit more of an abrupt ride as you're moving over through. So that's the biggest difference that we're feeling in the suspension. Haven't bottomed it out or anything like that. Like I said, I feel like it's contributing to a more planted feel when we're riding on smoother, more spirited trails. For my style of riding, I actually prefer it because I like to get more aggressive on flatter trails, and I think it's really positive in that regard. One thing we hear as a dig on Suzuki a lot are these 25-inch Carlisle tires. Like Suzuki should pick a better tire choice, especially for the SE Plus. I'll be honest, I know this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but Flying Brian and I are just sitting here talking about it. I actually like these tires on the King Quad. I feel like with a lighter tire, you're going to get more out of your single cylinder ATV. I've always been a fan of running stock tires for a while just to get an idea of, you know, the manufacturer setup and why they chose the tires that they did, even though sometimes you feel like it's a poor choice. But I don't mind these Carlisle tires at all. This is a slick, muddy, nasty day out. It rained all morning and I am having absolutely no problem with grip, and the lug depth is actually thicker than I thought it was going to be on the Carlisles compared to, you know, the Kenda Bear Claws that Flying Brian is running. How happy are you with the Kenda Bear Claws?
Absolutely freaking hate them.
These things make your quad shake. I really feel like, you know, with a big single, you can feel more of the power that you're getting if you keep your tires light. So to sum this whole thing up, overall I'd say the King Quad is a little underrated and underappreciated because it truly feels like a refined machine with a proven track record of reliability. The power from the biggest single-cylinder engine in an ATV on the market today is excellent, and it's complemented very well by superb handling characteristics and a flawless CVT-style transmission. The body style and ergonomics, especially the well-designed foot pegs, contribute significantly to the ride experience because your foot feels secure on the peg and there's plenty of room to move your weight around. Honestly, if I'm losing out a little bit on the suspension for the sake of the handling characteristics, that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. The front end feels planted with minimal push, dive, or roll. The handlebars and storage capacity was the biggest con for me, but fortunately adding a boxer bag to one of the racks clears up the storage issue, and the handlebars are going to be personal preference. What I like best about the King Quad is that Suzuki still offers a base model without EPS. Now, we'd recommend getting the EPS version, but I like that Suzuki has a no-frills option. Suzuki hasn't been exempt from the inflation that has caused prices to increase market-wide, but they aren't forcing premium models on buyers like a lot of the other manufacturers. An SE Plus gets the premium color option and aluminum wheels, but it still keeps the 25-inch Carlisle tires, and in doing so they managed to keep the King Quad's price relatively in check. I'd rather pick my own premium tires, so that's a strategy I really like from Suzuki. I've also got to give a shout out to MLS Power Sports in Georgetown, Kentucky. We aren't affiliated with them in any way, they just had the best prices on the King Quad, and they don't charge dealer or setup fees, and the whole buying experience was super easy. Thanks for checking out the video, guys. We'll see you again soon for the shootout right here on Dirt Obsession.